Hey there everyone, I am Vic Mignogna, host of Celtic Phoenix Productions, and welcome to the conclusion of a series where I spent the past several hours explaining the timeline of the Vic Mignogna vs. Funimation et al. Court case, as well as sorting through all the evidence provided by both parties to support or deny the Texas Citizens Participation Act motion to dismiss. I have done all of this as objectively as possible, recounting events as they happened or were accused to have happened, and I have done so in order for everyone to be on the same page as to what is happening in this case. However, I do have my own opinions on this case, and in fact, in attempting to maintain neutrality, my initial position was challenged severely after recounting all the evidence. But I think it's now time to talk about my thoughts on this case and where it might be heading. So let's dive into that. Vic Mignogna is innocent of what he is accused of doing. This is not an opinion statement, this is a factual statement under the principle of presumption of innocence. In the US, unlike many countries in the world, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty by a prosecution. No such prosecution was ever levied against Vic, and no kind of conviction has ever been placed against him either. Thus, factually speaking, he is innocent. The defense, however, have been given a prime opportunity to subvert the traditional enforcement of law, to reveal the evidence that would damn Vic in the court of public opinion. None of the evidence provided by the defense seems to have congealed beyond a handful of testimonies. And that's fine. Testimony is still evidence. It's possible these statements are all we need to ascertain Vic's innocence or guilt. But then problems arise. For example, Monica Rial contradicts herself between her sworn statements. In her response to plaintiff's interrogatory, she claims she tried to resist against Vic's kisses while in his hotel room. However, in her deposition, she says she just went with the flow. Seemingly a minor detail, but she ends up spending a lot of time describing it in her testimony, mentioning her rape when she was 15 and the impact it left on her, making me question why she would ever have said that she resisted his advances in the first place in the interrogatory, if that were such a prominent factoid inside of her planned statement. On top of that, this assault was not whispered once during the span of Funimation's investigation, even though she claimed that this was relayed to Tammy Denbo, which is very questionable on Funimation's part or on Monica's part. So there's a little bit of dissonance there. But that's not the only place that strange inconsistencies arise. It permeates the defense's evidence, such as Mary Reese recounting a bout of violence from Vic against Kara Edwards, where Kara's hair is grabbed. But Kara makes absolutely no mention of it when describing Vic's behavior towards her. Some would wonder why that didn't seem worthy of mention when lesser bouts of physical control, such as dragging her away to her room, were mentioned explicitly in her testimony. This is all ignoring the fact that Monica's testimony about the night of AzumiCon in 2007 is shot in the foot by the presence of Stan Dolan. A reminder, the plaintiff did not once mention Stan Dolan until his affidavit appeared in their evidence. He was, however, mentioned several times by Monica and Ron between their two depositions and her response to plaintiff's interrogatories. The fact that he does not recall any of the events described by Monica severely discredits her recounting of events and, largely, her entire testimony by proxy. It calls into question her validity as a witness. Then there are elements outside of the case to be taken into consideration that may yet have been brought into the actual case itself. I know if I were the plaintiff's attorney, I'd be watching for this kind of stuff like a hawk. The most prime example of this is Han Leia, who was the original poster that started all of this based on her initial tweet that was based on a post on Pretty Ugly Little Liar that mistook Vic for a voice actor in Skis bag, Illich Guardiola. The key clue to this event was the fact that Illich had sex with a 16-year-old girl, then married the girl in Las Vegas with the mother's permission. Vic never did that, yet this post Han Leia is referring to says that he did. There were several affidavits surrounding TekoshoCon over a number of years between Jennifer Lynn Hunt, Whitney Falba, and John Prager. However, the testimony of Falba is largely anecdotal in nature, mostly a character attack on Vic, and all other events recounted are hearsay, which means that she did not personally witness it whatsoever. Hearsay seems to be a theme in this because Prager testifies to information learned by Jim Gogol, not what he himself saw. Additionally, Jennifer Lynn Hunt may have perjured herself by recounting events she wasn't even in the country to witness based on the notes left behind by Gogol, and not disclosing that fact to the court. At best, her testimony is getting thrown out. At worst, she could be brought up on perjury charges. The affidavits of Kara Edwards and Mary Reese also have some questionable timelines, as 2 days after Kara supposedly told Mary of Vic's horrible, downright villainous behavior, Mary was sharing candid Facebook pictures of the man with cutesy captions, a far cry from what a reasonable person would do after learning a man is a sexual predator. That, and Kara has been seen multiple times interacting with Vic in a candid way following her description of him scaring her into her hotel room. Presumably this would be to keep the peace, but it seems almost too candid for even that. The more you dig into these testimonies and accusations, the more you find holes and inconsistencies, and it begins to bring the defense's whole case into question. The plaintiff doesn't suffer from inconsistencies nearly as much, if at all, but in fairness to the defense, the evidence brought by the plaintiff is largely defensive in nature, which is weirdly backwards. It's built to rebuff the accusations, so the evidence the plaintiff has is more pointed in focus and can be much cleaner in consistency. This also doesn't mean that the defense is shot. There are still a few accounts that haven't had any counters to them, such as the affidavit by Robin Michelle Blankenship McConnell. The downside of this is that there's no verifying evidence of these accusations either, meaning that it's a he said, she said scenario, their word against Vic's in each instance. Unless the defense or plaintiff add new evidence to explore these accusations, we're not going to get a satisfying answer as to what happened in those instances. Now, let us go from the plaintiff's perspective and assume that these people are being malicious in their claims against Vic. We must then entertain the question of what would motivate these people to target him in such a way. Well, we don't have much evidence at current. We may learn more later on if the appeal goes through and discovery is allowed to continue. Rial did give some insight when she mentioned Vic getting top billing on a DVD box instead of her when she was the main character. Do note, we did in fact find that copy of Tsubame something. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was the European special re-release or something like that. It was a very minor release as I understand it. So the fact that she was upset on that, kinda weird. But ignoring that little anecdote, her statement on the matter implies some degree of jealousy, and that could be a point for the plaintiff to pick on at a later date. Hell, jealousy could probably apply to all voice actors involved in these cases. Vic is popular, and it's not unusual for male and female voice actors to compete over young male character roles. There's also the idea of extra attention, publicity, personal vendettas. To everyone asking what motive these people might have, the sky's the limit. Just because you might not do something for petty reasons doesn't mean someone else won't. Ron Toye certainly acknowledged that he was angry at Vic, and even though he said, "I don't feel any malice towards him," doesn't mean that his actions weren't malicious. I'm going to say it now. Toye, of everyone, is in the worst position in this entire case. And with how much communication there was between the defendants before the case, Toye might be the albatross around the neck of all 4 defendants when civil conspiracy rolls around. Speaking of civil conspiracy, something interesting popped up in the defense's attorney fees, where Rial and Toye's lawyers seem to, at one point, have charged Funimation. This, combined with a number of redacted names in the client sheet, which shouldn't be necessary since we have the 2 clients right there in the courtroom, may or may not indicate that Ron and Monica lied under oath that they were the ones paying for their own lawyers, at least initially. I'm particularly curious about that, and I can't wait to see if that pans into anything larger. Now let's move on to what I consider the actual controversy around this case. The fan reaction. I don't want to dwell on this because it's a very messy subject, but safe to say, regardless of side, I am not a fan of the extremist elements at play right now. There are swaths of people who are just fine with doxing, harassing, and so on, and I'm typically not. This does, however, put me in an uncomfortable position because some of the doxing, from Kiwi Farms in specific, has resulted in very illuminating information regarding the affidavits and the testimonies. I don't know if I can really reconcile my principled stance on the matter with the practical results. So I guess in this instance, I'm a hypocrite. But if finding this information means damning a monster or exonerating an innocent, well, to quote the best Starfleet captain, I can live with it. Just don't harass people. I don't care what side of the aisle you are on. Do not harass people. It does not serve any purpose. Be kind always, especially when your opposition isn't. Take the high road, and you will come out clean on the other end. There are still a few more ancillary things to address. The behavior of the defendants' attorneys for Monica Rial and Ronald Toye have been interesting to watch. For one, there was this potential abuse of discovery where vital documents and information have been withheld without explanation for periods of time well past their due dates. There was also the transparent attempt to get just Vic's deposition before filing the TCPA, which halts all further discovery once filed, and thus they would not be able to depose Monica Rial or Ronald Toye. One would think if the defense truly believed Vic's defamation suit was uncalled for, they would launch the TCPA immediately, even before asking for Vic's deposition. It was only after a hearing with Judge Chupp that Rial and Toye were locked into their own depositions as well as Vic. Seems pretty sketchy to me, and that may very well come up should this trial make it back into district court. There's also the matter of the Gofundme. Typically, funding isn't much of an issue unless you're trying to be sneaky with something. However, Gofundme keeps the process very transparent. The money is going into an IOLTA trust account that can only be accessed by Vic's lawyers for the explicit purpose of paying his legal fees in this situation. However, somehow, the defendants appear to think that they can get that money. I don't know where they got that idea from, but due to the nature of the GoFundMe and the IOLTA account, there's not a single way for them to get a dime from the over $280,000 it contains. This ties in directly with Nick Rekieta, who the defense has been trying to call to the stand this entire time because they believe he's some sort of con artist for setting up the GoFundMe, or some kind of mastermind behind the defamation case. I've been following this case and Rekieta for the better part of a year now, and he's been incredibly consistent and transparent. The man is a journalist who enjoys watching the insanity of the situation play out and is sympathetic to Vic's cause, now more so than ever because now he's actually Vic's friend. It is a touch more complicated than that, but I have no indication of foul play coming from Rekieta. From all appearances, he's just one hell of an internet troll and is unrelated to the case as Sharon Grigsby from the Dallas Morning News is, with her fluff articles being written about the defense. Now, to slowly wrap things up, I'm going to go through my opinions on the defendants and their chances of winning the lawsuit overall. Jamie Marchi has quite possibly the highest chance of escaping the lawsuit. I put my odds at about 70%. As far as evidence goes, it's a largely he-said, she-said situation where neither can be proven right or wrong. She also seems to have the most professional and slickest lawyer in the group, as he apparently got the judge to forget about pretty serious evidence completely on the fly, not like 30 seconds after it was directly presented to him. So my hat's off to that guy, he seems to know what he's doing. Funimation, more 50-50 when it comes to getting out. Proving the entire company was part of defaming Vic, leveraging conventions or leveraging other voice actors to speak out, that's going to be tricky if Discovery comes up empty. At the same time, they can't quite escape their tweet, but they have a chance to argue around it. Monica Rial is just depressing. I've enjoyed her work in the past, she's an enjoyable Suyu in My Hero Academia, and the connections that come with her like J. Michael Tatum is super disheartening. I don't want to think ill of these people, I really don't, but I know I won't be able to look at her work the same way. At best, she's someone that made some spiteful, stupid comments, and got trapped in the consequences of those comments. It happens to people, and now she can't back down because there's a whole community rallying behind her. I understand that. And this applies to Marchi as well, though I already had a negative disposition given some of her choices for the dub of Dragon Maid. Overall, though, I think Monica is in deep and has the least chance of escaping the situation because of, well, Ron Toye. Ronald Toye is the one person in this case that I have the most conflicted feelings about because I think he's a person that wants to do good, but doesn't know how. The man has a very unsympathetic backstory. Not only was he the most prolific person in defaming Vic, but he's also been divorced twice, apparently both times at the hands of physical abuse of his wife, possibly his child, although that's unconfirmed, it's merely speculative, and threatened to murder a judge and murder his wife's dog at the time. Yikes. But in the time between the second ex-wife and meeting Monica Rial, he apparently went to counseling and tries to portray himself as better. I don't think he is, but I don't think he realizes it either. I think in this circumstance, he was told that Vic Mignogna was a molester, was an abuser, was his horrible harasser. And he channeled all of that rage or whatever issue he has naturally, that the thing that he has had to go on the counseling for, the thing that he keeps under control, he channeled all of that into hurting Vic. Because he sees it as some sort of vigilante justice. At least that's my view on why he does what he does. I think he's a sick person. And while I had spite towards him when I learned about his wives, I think he's a person that more than ever needs help. Especially after seeing some of his behavior post the case going into appeals. Ron, if you're watching this, on the rare chance that you are, I would talk to your counselor about this, because it sounds like a massive case of projection to me. I genuinely worry about your mental stability, man. I think you seriously need to see some help. This is patently ignoring how he was incredibly evasive during deposition, aggressive towards the attorney during deposition, and then showed up to Monica's deposition wearing a tank top, aka a wife beater, which I find more than ironic for a number of reasons. But that was presumably to intimidate opposing counsel. Ron, seriously, get help. Alright? I think you're digging yourself a pretty deep grave, all things considered. As for Vic, the plaintiff himself, he has his own issues. It's more than clear he cheated on his fiancée multiple times, and now he's paying, tangentially, some of the consequences. I'm not going to act like he's perfect, but I don't believe he deserves what he's going through right now, and I think this defamation case, he's in the right in. He is currently still innocent of any legal wrongdoing, but I'm not going to ignore every affidavit above. It could be revealed in some future filing there's a bulletproof piece of evidence he's guilty of something horrible, and if it's presented, I'll have no choice but to side against him. But that silver bullet has yet to be fired. So all I can do now is see this man who's been broken and ejected and feel a modicum of empathy for him. Vic, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry you had to go through all this. I'm sorry any of this happened to you. And I do hope that one day I can meet you in person to show my support for you personally. Just know you've got another person standing at your back. I think it's pretty clear at this point that I stand with Vic, though I don't plan to associate with the hashtag, either hashtag KickVic or I stand with Vic, because I find they have really bloodied the waters of the conversation. That's one reason I made this project, is so that everyone could be on the same page, so that we could discuss the facts as they've been presented to the court, and we could really get down to the hearts of the issue. If you're Kick Vic or I stand with Vic, I hope you're able to utilize these video sources as a way to bolster your viewpoints or challenge them, because throughout all this, I stood with Vic throughout the entire thing, but I had been challenged multiple times after reading all those different testimonies. I did not mean to mock my microphone. When I read some of them, I was drawn to the Kick Vic side. I can see where you're coming from, Kick Vic. It's not that I don't understand the passion and the concern you have over the situation. I just ultimately came back to the Vic side because I saw countervening evidence. I saw evidence of foul play. I saw things that troubled me about the defense's arguments. So I hope that no matter who you are watching this video, you respect my point of view as much as I'm going to try and respect yours. and I hope that this can start a nice and genial conversation about the matter down in the comments down below. I don't want anyone tearing each other's throats out. Please, no arguments. Just talk it out. Be calm, be courteous, and most importantly, be kind. Because in this world, we're only here for a short while. Why waste it being angry? Thank you all so much for watching this massive project that was supposed to be a fifth the size it ended up being. Actually, it ended up being 6 times the size I initially planned. I wanted it just to be one video about the length of the first one. So this was massive to me. Another thank you to my friend Terranium, who helped me comb through all of the evidence. Without him, I would have gone crazier sooner than later. Actually, I think I ended up crazier with him on board. Huh. Now, you may have noticed that I did not at any point plug any of my new patrons or my current patrons during these videos. I felt in this instance that connecting the names of my supporters to such a controversial subject would be dangerous given the hostile attitude floating between the split community. My patrons signed on for more fun and lighthearted content, and so I would rather reflect that with my shoutouts than anything else. Rest assured, the more recent patrons will get a shoutout in the next major video I do. It'll be nowhere near as controversial as these videos. Hopefully. But if you did enjoy this series, I've not been able to monetize it. I have been in limited advertising mode, which means demonetized more than anything, this entire time for all these videos. So I've not really made a dime. If you feel like supporting me and my efforts, I would appreciate if you go over to my Patreon at patreon.com/CelticPhoenix to support me, because honestly, this took a lot of time. It's over 110 pages in script format, and I'm getting no bang for my buck out of this. I'm doing this for the good of the community at this rate. So if you feel like supporting me, I would more than appreciate it. If you don't feel like contributing to the channel directly, okay, that's fair. I'm not going to force you to do anything. Not that I can. But if you could do me a kind favor and subscribe to the channel and ring that bell to make sure that you get notifications of all of my newest uploads, at least if you felt that you enjoyed this entire series of events. I will occasionally cover more serious topics from time to time, but mostly there's lighthearted stuff on this channel that I hope you can all enjoy. Additionally, you can follow me at Raymond McNeil on Twitter, where I basically have a lot of updates and a lot of silly shenanigans and a lot of cute things that I post, because I like following cute bots, and it's mostly cute anime girls. Please follow me for cute anime girls. Now, this entire project has taken a lot out of me, as you might be able to imagine. I've been working on this since late December. I'm tired. I'm ready to get back to more fun topics. I hope to see you all there when I get there. Until then, I will catch you all on the flip side.